This podcast is all about you and your journey in music and how you got to where you are now. And we'll talk about the new record coming out in June and the most recent single, Wild Turkey. And we can also talk a lot about Black Myself as well.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. First off, where were you born and raised?
So I was born and raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then I've been living in Johnson City, Tennessee since 2006. So I've basically been in East Tennessee my entire life on either side of the Great Smokies. So
yeah, right on. Well, yeah, my family just moved to Nashville like a month ago. So
nice.
We're from San Diego. Yeah, it's the different living here. I would love it. It's amazing out here.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I live about 4 hours east of Nashville, but I've been going there quite a bit over the past. Well, I say quite a bit. For me, leaving town like twice in 6 months is quite a bit now. It used to be a lot more than that for obvious reasons. But
sure.
But yeah, I've been up until 2020, and then a little bit this year. I've been going to travel to Nashville a little bit more for just doing promo, video, that kind of thing. So
very cool.
So yeah, I really do enjoy when I get a chance to stay there. However, the thing that keeps me from moving there is I really would miss the mountains. And
sure.
I do enjoy when I'm on the road. I do like coming back to a place where it's like you can get to anywhere in 10 minutes and like you don't have to look for parking, and
sure.
it's nice to come back to that. But then after 2 or 3 weeks, I'm like, all right, it's time to leave, so I always like to do stuff. So pandemic's been pretty tough as far as being able to kind of bop around and do things. So
Definitely. That's cool. So Chattanooga's more of like small town living, like where you grew up?
No. Well, Johnson City's is definitely more of a small town. I think in the county there's like 65,000 people. It might be more now with whenever they get the new census results in. But in Chattanooga, it's like 250,000 people live there.
Okay.
So it's it's a bit bigger. Their downtown is really dope. That's probably my favorite part of Chattanooga is the downtown, especially since I've left. There's been a lot of growth and development. Went to high school in North Shore, which is near downtown Johnson City, getting my cities mixed up, near downtown Chattanooga. So,
rad.
So yeah, it's cool.
That's amazing. How did you get into music?
So my parents bought me my first guitar when I was 13. And really that was just inspired by really just watching MTV and then listening to the stuff that my dad played. He's a big audiophile, so he had like a really big vinyl and CD collection and like 3-way speakers and a turntable. Like he pretty much had the whole nine there. So, so yeah, I just grew up listening to a bunch of different stuff. And, by the time I turned 13, my parents kind of had these like 3 life goals for me. They wanted me to play some kind of team sport, which I did that for a little bit. And then, play music or pick out an instrument that I wanted to play, and then, make great grades in school. So eventually I stopped playing sports and really just dove into playing music, and, yeah, kind of just started from there and kind of went on.
At 13, when you got that guitar, did you, what did you do first? Did you try to learn like cover songs, or like, I know some people don't try that route. They just go straight into trying to come up with their own kind of songs. Like, which way did you go?
Yeah, I dug into songs that I liked. I started out, my parents got me a CD-ROM. This is before YouTube, so I couldn't there's like a bazillion like tutorials now. It's actually a bit overwhelming. There's so many things out there now, but my parents got me like a CD-ROM, and there's this guy, playing, showing chords and scales and stuff like that. So I just spent like a couple of months trying to get the basic strumming pattern down, learning C, G, and D and all that. And kind of just went from there. And then the first song I learned was Good Riddance, Time of Your Life by Green Day.
Oh, amazing.
That was the first song because it had the G, C, and D chords in it. And I was like, all right, I'll try this. And So yeah, I kind of just went from there, and then I just kept, my parents kept getting me VHSs and DVDs, and I just really just learned by ear and just learned by watching videos and doing that. And I eventually figured out guitar tablature, and then I was pretty much off to the races. And then I didn't really start attempting really songwriting until I was 14 or 15. And that's about the time I discovered Tori Amos and was like completely blown away. She was like definitely one of my big inspirations for wanting to try to write songs, but I wouldn't really like consider songwriting or performing even as a career until I was in my early 20s. So because for me, music was kind of like it was like a personal therapy for me. So it was really socially awkward, really anxious growing up. And so particularly in my teen years. And so music was kind of like the escape from that. So yeah, when I started like performing in my early 20s, that was sort of like the beginning of what would be, where I am now. So
sure. What made you decide like, you know what, I'm going to really attempt to do this, to pursue this, like start playing in front of people? Do you remember those early moments?
Well, yeah, I remember, I would say like, yeah. So like in my I can't remember exactly how old I was, but in my early 20s, me and my dad moved from Chattanooga to Johnson City. My mother passed away when I was 17. So that was, and we stayed in Chattanooga for a couple of years, and it was really, really hard. So we left, we went to Johnson City to kind of really just start over again. And I transferred from the college I was at in Chattanooga and just transferred to East Tennessee State University. And I decided to take a semester break, but I wanted to like take one class or something. And I came across a group bluegrass guitar class, and I had no idea about what bluegrass was. All I knew about was like the Beverly Hillbillies. Like I didn't know anything about bluegrass, old time, any of that stuff. So, but I was just really curious and thought I would, it wouldn't hurt to give it a shot. And then I took that class, and then I eventually started to learn more about not just bluegrass, but like, old time music and the historical and cultural aspects of the music, and how, how like everybody really had a role in the beginnings of like country music and blues and all of that. And really learning like the role of like of black Americans in country music and old time music. So that was also like, coming across that music and, growing up in a pretty much like an all white suburban area, and then, always being like the only black person in the room, there was always kind of this sense of like, where is my sense of place? Where do I belong? Sure. And when I started reading the history about a lot of this music, I started to realize like, I'm not alone on an island. I am, I have a heritage. I have, I have culture. I have, so that was, so for me, it was not only just, starting to be a performer, but also just getting a better sense of identity and who I am and where I stand in the world. And I got encouraged by my father. He always thought I had a really good voice, but it was really on me to like finally like have the courage to step out. And there was a lot of support within the program that I ended up performing in. I auditioned for bands, and it kind of just went from there. So slowly but surely, I started performing more. I started playing solo shows. And so for a while, I didn't really write as many songs, and I just really kind of just started like reinterpreting like older folk songs. And then, I graduated in 2012 with a degree in bluegrass old time country music studies.
Wow.
And
that's awesome. So you really took it as far as that's amazing.
And so the defining moment of me like switching to that major and really fully devoting myself, is, I think there was a song from the Carter family called, oh my God, I can't remember what it is.
It's okay.
It's crazy. Bury Me Under the Weeping Willow.
Okay.
I did like my own like interpretation of it. And I played for my dad, and I said, I think I want to switch from this information technology degree and and pursue music. And he was like, well, if you want to do this, I believe in you, and I'll be with you every step of the way. So he like retired early and just like spent, the rest of the past like 10 or 12 years just like helping me any way he could, because he has an experience with like business management. So he helped me like get organized, because I tend to be like easily distracted and a bit scatterbrained. So
sure. You're on the creative
like,
side of things.
And then I was kind of like the typical artist, like my head's like everywhere, but sometimes it can be everywhere but in the present. So they helped me like get organized, and help me on the road with like driving and selling merch and that kind of thing. So so yeah, that was kind of that moment where I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. So
that's so cool that he was so on board. I mean, what a great advocate for you, as far as like really, going all in with you as well. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Really, really lucky, because I've heard stories of, musicians where their parents are like, get a real job, or, like just don't take it seriously at all. But my dad, he's always loved music, and he played like part-time in a band when he was when he was a younger man, and so he knows what it feels like to perform and how awesome it is, and so yeah, he just figured she needs me along, because I still had issues with like social anxiety and that kind of thing. So like I also had a tendency to like be really like guarded, and sometimes it was kind of hard for me to find my place. So he was really supportive, helped me through that too. So
that's amazing.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, because it could have went a totally different. You could have had a totally different conversation with him. He could have said, "No, you need to get that, whatever tech degree, and you could do that as a hobby." You know what I mean? Like, but he really said, "Yeah, go for it." That's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing, like, because the big concern, obviously, with music is that there is no guarantee of anything working out at all. You just sort of have to like. You kind of plug away at it and hope that people are interested. And that's because you really don't know what's going to happen. There was a couple of years where after I'd left college, there was a couple of years where I was using my credit card to buy groceries by the time like, winter and January rolled around. And I'm like, I don't know, man, I'm going to give this another year, and I may just have to get a full-time job doing something else, because I can't do this. And then like that very year is when I ended up opening up for Rhiannon Giddens, and and then her booking agent signed me on, and then it seemed like every 6 months or a year, like something happened. I got like a UK booking agent that actually came before the American booking agent, which that's an interesting story in it itself. But
let's hear it if you have a second.
Well, so the way that I actually started touring the UK before I started. Well, I mean, I was touring the US, but like, really just playing like mostly weekend shows, some things during the week around regionally.
Not like a big, like 3 month tour.
Not like, But the first, like, I guess, like 2 week long tour they ever had was actually ended up being in the UK. And the way that happened was I actually had made, I'd actually entered a video into the Tiny Desk contest back in 2015. And like I didn't win it, but like I was one of like the sort of, they made like a commercial and my video got featured within that commercial. So that video got a lot of views. And this guy named Andy Shearer, he's the director of the Southern Fried Festival that they have in Perth, Scotland. It's like an Americana festival. And so he saw that video, and he also saw a review that someone wrote on my record on the afropunk.com. So he reached out to me, and he said that he it has this festival, and he's doing a Dolly Parton tribute night, and it's going to be all female singers. That's how I met Yola.
Okay.
That's the first time I met her, was when I went and did that. So anyway, he said, "What can I do to get you to come here?" And I'm like, if you all pay for everything, because like it was. I mean, it's not cheap to fly to the UK, especially when you're like fresh out of college and broke. So, so I was like, if you pay for everything, then I would love to do this. This is amazing. I don't have the money to do this. And he said, okay. So the festival paid for my round trip ticket, for lodging and everything. And, I did the Dolly Parton tribute night. I met Yola, Della Mae, the all-female bluegrass band. They were the house band. Wow. It was cool. I met like Samantha Crane, played that show too.
Oh, I've interviewed her. She's great.
Yeah. So it was just like, it was amazing. Met the McCrary sisters there too. So it was just an incredible, this awesome time. And so afterwards I messaged him and said, hey, I really had a wonderful time. If you know, anyway, I'd love to come back and play the UK at some point. Like if you can ever point me into the right direction of who I could, do that with. So then like about a week or two later, he's like, hey, I started a booking agency. Do you want to be on it? So I was like, yeah, let's do it. That's amazing. Yeah, I've been working with him. So I've been working with him since like 2016. Or 2015. So then 2016 is when I ended up meeting Rhiannon and her agent, Chris Colburn. And yeah, so just every year, like my team got a little bit bigger, and I got a little more opposite. It was like a very gradual progression until now, where now it's like, I'm working with Rounder Records. So there's a label. I've got management that I hired a couple of years ago. There's PR team. There's a sync licensing team. There's like, it's crazy. It's just like, it went from, it started, just, me and my dad on the road. And then now it's just like this whole team of people. And I'm like, I just hired like accountants yesterday. So it's just like
amazing,
because things are like, things are getting dialed up. So I need all hands on deck to help me do as much as possible so I can still focus on music, and taking care of that. Cause as any independent, touring musician knows, like it's rough to try to do everything. Cause like you get some of it right. Like you get the music right. And then you get some of the other stuff right and you can get by. But then sometimes it's hard to like really focus on music cause you're thinking about all the other stuff. So, So yeah, I just really feel really blessed and fortunate to be able to have this opportunity to have all this help to get my music out there and, be able to, truly be able to leave my job at Target and,
right.
and do this full time. So
that's amazing. Wow. Okay. So you talked about meeting Rhiannon in 2016. When did you guys start and put out when did you guys start Our Native Daughters and like that? You put that record out, 2019?
Yeah. So 2017, I want to say winter 2017 is when Rhiannon reached out to me about this point, I already been on like a couple of tours with her. Okay. Which were awesome. Just incredible. She and her band put on like such an incredible show. Like so awesome. And the crowd was great. It was cool. But yeah, so she reached out winter of 2017 and asked and said, hey, I've got this project. I'm working with the National African American History and Culture Museum. I'm going to shoot an email with some details. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm excited. I'm definitely on board. I can't wait to find out what it is. And so she sent an email to myself, Allison Russell, Layla McCullough, and just outlining, we're going to be exploring themes within the transatlantic slave trade. And, that's a topic culturally and historically that, has been discussed that I've had discussions in a very sort of academic sense. Like it's like in a college class or something like that. You're talking, and that's kind of, and it's like everybody, when we're talking about it, it's like, oh yes, like this goes so much deeper than what we learned in high school or whatever. Like it was just, there was so much more depth to that. So I was excited to jump on that with that prospect, but I had no idea, like, I had no idea how it was going to make me feel. Like it was a very personal for like all of us. When we really started digging into this material, I mean, and Rhiannon's been, working on and writing songs about this stuff for quite some time now. So, she'd already kind of, already knew what to expect there. But
Sure.
I think what started as something that was like an incredible project turned into a very personal and even spiritual, experience, because it's, four Black women playing banjos, and like we all know what it's like to be the only Black person in the room. We know what it's like to pursue something and be questioned about it. And like, while we obviously love all of the white artists that we've worked with our entire, throughout our careers, it was a very different thing to actually, have that sense of understanding of like, with all of our backgrounds being, somewhat similar, with our experience with race and how we've had to, overcome that and seek out people that, are like true allies in that sense. So, that project that really turned into this really important, pivotal moment personally, I think for all of us. And when we did that project, it was kind of like, we're doing this. It's going into the African American legacy section of Smithsonian, and we'll see what happens. But the response was above and beyond, I think, what we anticipated. And it's like,
Sure.
oh, we're a band now. So now we need to play shows. And so, anyway, I've been going on for a minute about that, but yeah.
Oh, no, please do. This is all about you. I mean,
yeah.
You guys recorded it in like some like Civil War building, right? Or like pre-Civil War building, or am I reading that wrong?
So we, it was recorded in an old cabin, I think, that had been around since about that time.
Okay.
And it's on the property of Dirk Powell's kind of like homestead out in Bro Bridge, right out 20 minutes outside of Lafayette. So it was like out in Bayou country, and this like, this really old like cabin with the studio in it. So it was like, and recording in an environment like just out in the country like that, I've not personally experienced anything like that. So that was, so like, it's like you kind of leave the studio and go outside, and it's just, you're just out there, and it's, I don't know. And his mom lives on the property. So we'd leave and we'd go up to his mom's place, and she'd always make sure that we had food in our mouth. Like, she was just constantly feeding us.
That's awesome.
Yeah. She had a really cool cat named Shadow, and It was cool. So it was a really wonderful experience. It really felt like it felt very family-like, so it was cool.
That's awesome. And you wrote Black Myself for that record, or was that a song you already had?
Yeah, I wrote that song while I was there. And,
wow.
And that's a song, like, I wrote that really toward like the last few days that we were in the studio, because we were writing, rehearsing, and recording kind of all at the same time. So it was like a very organic kind of process. So when I wrote that song, I'd been like, reading slave narratives and revisiting like old time songs, and, having these like discussions, sharing our life experiences with one another. And, when I wrote this song, it kind of just came pouring out. Like, it just took a few hours to write it, because I think it's something, I'm one to believe that when you're writing a song, like, the ones that kind of pour out of you like that, because that's happened to me, a handful of times, it's something that's been within you for a while and needed to come out. And when that just started happening, I was like, I need to write this song, even if nobody likes it. Like I need to write this. And um I think when I finished it, and I played it for everybody in the studio, everybody was like, what? Like everybody was just like really blown away. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess we can record it then. So yeah, that was one of the last songs that we ended up recording.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's, I ended up trying to cover like, whatever 400 years of history in 3 minutes. And yeah, it was such a cathartic feeling to write that one, because yeah, and being in that project in particular, I think is absolutely the reason why I had the courage to write that song, because I've spent so many years not really wanting to be particularly controversial or confrontational, I should say,
Sure.
With my songwriting, because I was in a situation where I kind of felt like I needed to like stay in one lane in order to make sure that I kept getting gigs. So like I was in the closet for a really long time. There's just certain things that I did songwriting wise and my performance wise that I just didn't want to like lose work, because I was afraid that's what would happen.
Yeah, you're almost censoring yourself.
Yeah. And so by this point, like I surpassed that frontier of like being able to come out and like, live my life authentically. And the next step was being able to really like confront my experience with race, even though there's unfortunately a lot of naysayers that either don't care about that story or, will say things to invalidate your story. And I was like, well, and deciding to do this project and knowing how it made me feel, I was like, well, this is the time to really kind of lay into how I feel about stuff. And yeah, and then the response has been awesome. So anytime I've decided I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and really just speak my truth,
yeah,
I'm welcome. For every person that doesn't like it, I barely see those people. So,
right.
So yeah, it's a lot of self-discovery involved with all of this too, for me. So
yeah, I love that. Well, you said that you felt like you would be invalidated with what you said. Do you feel like, I mean, once you get that out, then it's having the people around you in that project you were working in, like validate that song that you wrote? That must've been a pretty empowering moment for you.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is like when you have the people in your life that understand your truth and listen to you, then anything else outside of that's negative, like it is what it is. People are going to pick something that they don't like about anything that you do. So why should I hold back when, everybody else is saying everyone else is saying what their opinion is. So at least if I'm giving my opinion, it's coming from a place of, being informed and from a place of like really trying to like contribute to the greater good. And, we all fall down. Nobody's perfect. But, I think, striving for the greater good at the end of the day, I think that's worth it. Even if you have a bunch of people that, maybe don't agree with you or are actively working against you. I mean, we're seeing like, the GOP in like several states is trying to like, they're increasing voting restrictions, and it just so happens it's targeting a certain segment of the population. There's like all these like things that are still happening, and we just have to continue to like stand up and speak our truth when something's wrong, and in whatever way makes the most sense for us. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then you decided you re-released the song as well, right? You re-recorded it recently.
Yeah, I re-recorded it. When I would play it during my sets or when I'd have like full band shows, we kind of kind of leaned into it and rocked out a little bit more. And I'm like, I think I'd like to re-record this like more of a rock version, because that's sort of where my heart lies musically. Alongside of the Roots stuff, I was an alternative kid before the Roots stuff, so I have always kind of wanted to reconcile those two things, which I think I was actually finally able to do with this record.
Yeah, you did a great job of it. I
was actually in the studio. This was the third time I've been in the studio for this record. I've been working on it for like 3 years, so it's had a journey. But when I went to the Sound City in LA and worked with Tony Berg, he produced the record. He and my A&R guy Mark Williams, they were both like, "You've thought about re-recording, Like Myself, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I definitely want to re-record it at some point." And they're like, "Well, what if we did it for this record?" And I said, I didn't exactly think I would do that for this record. And we all kind of so we got into this discussion and recognizing that when it comes to race relations in this country, I mean, even now there has been a sustained conversation in mainstream media longer than I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. Like a shooting will happen, people will get upset, and then it stops trending. Mm-hmm. But, with the advent of the lockdown and people kind of having to be in one place when the George Floyd was murdered, that just, I think between lockdown, being at home, watching TV, like people seeing that and being like, we've got to, this has to stop, and, seeing this sustained interest. So it just really made sense to reintroduce the song again and as my own way of keeping the conversation going. Mm-hmm. It just needed to be done. So, and I'm happy with the response of the new version too. People have been really open and receptive to that. So it's been cool.
That's awesome. And you got to record it in such a, historic studio too. I mean, Sound City. Yeah.
I remember when I got told that that's who I'd be working with, I was like, wait a minute. Isn't that Dave, the one that Dave Grohl went to? I was just I was looking it up and I was like, oh my God. And it was such an incredible studio to work in too. God, I mean, it was, and there was just, you go to some places and you can and I don't know, this might sound cheesy, but I go to some places and I can feel the history. You feel the energy of
I've heard
the hundreds of people that have, I feel that when I go in old theaters, it's the same. Anytime I go into a building that's been around for decades and hundreds of amazing musicians and producers have been in there, I don't know, it just had this amazing energy to it. And so definitely would love to record there again. Hopefully that'll happen again, because that was cool. So
that's really cool. Cool. Will that be on the new record coming out next June?
Yeah. The new version of Like Myself will be on there. And just released a second single from that record, Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
Will also be on that record too. So
tell me about Wild Turkey a little bit.
So Wild Turkey is actually addressing the death of my mother.
Oh wow.
She committed suicide, and I didn't really talk about it with anybody. I mean, when we moved to Johnson City, I never talked about that at all. The only time I'd ever talk about it is, with my dad. But yeah. I really repressed my grief. There was a lot of anger. There was this sense of feeling abandoned. Mm-hmm. And, this idea would run through my head. Well, if my own mother won't even stick around, then why should I? What's the point of making friends? What's the point of whatever? And so that settled in my brain. And then I do this thing where I internalize how I'm feeling and I don't talk about it. So I'm working on that with my therapist. I've been working on that for the past 5 years. I think I've gotten better at it.
It's a difficult thing.
Yeah, especially when you're just used to. I mean, when you're defense, because my defense mechanism is just to keep a guard up, keep my distance, disassociate. That's been my MO ever since then. And so, So what got me to be able to write this song is after 2 or 3 years of being in therapy. I love my therapist. She's wonderful. I finally had the courage to write about what happened. But then it took 2 years to write the song because I don't know, like it was one of those songs where it's like I would come up with a melody and a chord progression. I'd be like, no, this is trash. This isn't, because I I wanted to honor her in a way,
right?
you know?
Yeah. Sure.
And so I was just like, so anyway, I finally, obviously I figured it out. I figured out the melody and what I wanted it to be. But yeah, I mean, but so with Wild Turkey, that the title comes from the whiskey. So when they found, so my mother, what we pretty much figured happened is she drowned herself in the Tennessee River, and she was missing for like 7 days, and they found her body in like Macon, Georgia. So when they found the car, there was like an empty bottle of like a fifth of Wild Turkey. And to my knowledge, I mean, my parents had, drink beer, but I'd never ever seen my mom drink hard liquor. So that was just, that kind of threw me and my dad both for a loop when we found out about that. We're like, well, I didn't know that she drank like that. So anyway, so that's a whole other thing. I have no idea, what the story is with that, but that's what they found in the car. So there's the line, Wild Turkey in the car seat, the bottle's empty. I hope it gave you some relief. So that's what that's referring to. I remember when I named the song, and I would like kind of introduce it as like a really difficult song to write. And then I would say it's called Wild Turkey. I don't know if anyone else thought this, but in my mind, I'm like, do people think I got attacked by a turkey when I was a kid? Like, because I would say I had this traumatic experience, and then I'd say, and the song's called Wild Turkey. And I always think in my head, I don't know, hopefully people like don't think.
Put it together as the alcohol and not just some random turkey.
So yeah, I don't know. I haven't found, I guess whatever. It's just something I think about sometimes. Like, maybe I should rename the song, but no, I think it's fine. I think people get it once they hear the song. So
yeah, I mean, I thought of the liquor when I heard the song title. That's what I thought of.
Okay, well, maybe I guess maybe some people do. I don't know. My brain does weird stuff like right before I play a song. That's my, I guess, you're undiagnosed ADHD going on, but my mind will start thinking about, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have named it this because now they think I'm getting attacked by a turkey. Like, I don't know. My brain does stuff like that, but.
Sure. Well, I did see that you're going to be playing on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Have you ever done that before?
I have not. It would be the first time I've been on late night TV ever.
Wow. How huge.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the only bitter, I really can't complain about this at all. But the only like little bittersweet part of it is because of the pandemic, they're still only accepting like video submissions. Sure. Which that's already been done. So it'll be like a pre-recorded video, which that's what all the late night shows have been doing for the past year. Right. So that's the only part where I'm like, oh man, one day be awesome to get on the plane and actually go there. And I think, I think it'll happen eventually, but, totally. But either way, like, I'm just super excited about it. And around here, like, I live in Johnson City, so like, it's a small town. So like, anytime I literally go anywhere, like, people are like, congratulations on Jimmy Kimmel. Like, it's really cool. Yeah, it's been really neat.
That is awesome. Are you playing a Wild Turkey? Or are you going to play Black Myself?
I think we discussed Black Myself, and this was before the second single was out, because the actual date for the show was actually pushed back a little bit. So I think it's still going to be Black Myself, but I don't know. We'll see. It could it could be Wild Turkey. You'll just have to find out.
We'll see on May 6th. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Amythyst, so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
I would say find the people that love and support you and believe in what you're doing. keep them close. It is so important to have people, even if it's one person, which was my instance. I had one person, and that's as long as you have one person in your corner, believing what you're doing and wanting to help you, do that, and then the rest will come. And yeah, it's important to surround yourself with people. As you build a team of people to work with, like, it's important to like slowly build that. Don't jump at like the very first person that jumps out, because it's an interesting business. Being in the music business, there's a lot of people that you gotta really look out for yourself, and you really have to make sure you have good people in your corner, because otherwise it's gonna be hard. But it's already gonna be hard anyway, because you're trying to you're starting your own business. You're investing time and money into your craft and trying to get out into the world. So it really means everything to have people around you that support you and believe in what you're doing. So